Hi everybody!
Persona 6 is just over the horizon. Many fans speculated we would have seen something related to the game during the 25th anniversary celebration, which was almost 2 years ago at this point. Overall, Atlus's celebration of the franchise was rather disappointing. Considering Persona 6 may launch next year, releasing it before the 30th anniversary is a missed opportunity, but that doesn't mean Atlus should straight up ignore the legacy of the series. In fact, they should make Persona 6 a celebration of the series to date. They can do that in a number of ways. So let's get to exploring how they can celebrate the franchise. Also, I'm working on a wishlist video for Persona 6, so if you want to be notified when that video goes live, hit the subscribe button. Okay, let's get the most obvious one out of the way. Persona is very good about referencing characters from previous arcs to help the world building, and that's a great thing. However, Persona 6 is going to need to go big or go home when it comes to this. One of the ways they can amp this up is by including party members from previous arcs within the narrative of this game. This would be a great inclusion, not just to celebrate the franchise, but also improve potential storytelling options going forward. Also, it'd be a great way for Atlus to use existing assets without having to craft wholly new characters for the scenario, which would be a good cost-cutting measure. For example, they already have the models and animations for characters during the Persona 3 storyline thanks to Persona 3 Reload. Also, if one of Midori's recent leaks is to be believed, they're working on Persona 4's remake. I've previously discussed that in a separate video, so check the description and the pinned comment for that one. If that remake comes out before Persona 6, maybe that'll be indicative of Atlus including previous characters within Persona 6's narrative. It would also be interesting to see some of the characters as young adults, or in some cases even older. They could even give the new characters from the core P6 team some insights and advice, which would be an interesting idea. As for how they could implement the previous characters seamlessly into this game from a mechanics perspective is utilizing whatever the randomly generated dungeons of this game happen to be. As you know, Persona 3 used Tartarus and Persona 5 used Mementos, so that kind of gameplay loop is well established within Persona already. As for how it could work from a narrative perspective, Atlus could take inspiration from Nihon Falcom on this one. During The Legend of Heroes Trails into Reverie, you have 3 concurrent storylines, with your characters meeting up in the Reverie corridor. Something akin to that would work out pretty well for this game, as characters would meet up in whatever winds up replacing Mementos, then later on meet up in the real world as the narrative progresses. Also, before someone comments, there's little reason for this to happen, stop right there. The same could be said of Persona Q and Q2, both of which featured previous characters teaming up, so even though it happened in a spin-off game, there is some precedent within the Persona franchise. Now that people have been exposed to the negotiations tactic thanks to Persona 5 and the shuffle time mechanic thanks to Persona 3 Reload, it'd just make sense for Persona 6 to include those plus some other mechanics from the franchise's past. I'm not sure what they could incorporate from Persona 1 and 2, but I'm sure there's something. If you have an idea as to what they should incorporate from those titles in regards to drop mechanics, let me know in the comments section. But by including mechanics found in previous entries and updating those for a modern audience would be a great way to pay homage to the legacy of the franchise. It could also lead to brand new mechanics if older ones and ones found in Persona 5 can dovetail together. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Iteration over innovation. Also, let's face it, sometimes these iterative ideas become innovative when incorporated correctly. I know a lot of people are divided on the whole shuffle time mechanic, but I personally love it, as it allows you to get a little bit extra experience, money, stats up, or temporary buffs. It prevents the grinding aspects of Persona from growing stale quickly, so I would say keep that. As for the negotiating for Personas and items, I feel that should be kept, along with the random item drops, because it would mean more depth to the overall package. I've said it for fighting games in previous videos, but it's always preferable to give your player base more options than less. Persona 6 is the perfect opportunity for Atlus to do just that. When it comes to team-ups in the Persona games, there's always a debate on if other wildcard users should be included or not. Personally, I'm divided on the issue. I can see pros and cons for both. So, I'll say this, if the other wildcard users from previous arcs are included, they should only be available when the other wildcard users are unavailable. That way, it isn't ridiculously easy to just break the game in half, since the player character is intended to fill the gaps within your party. That's what makes the wildcard users so special. I'd argue it's also part of why Atlus removed the affinity mechanic starting with Persona 3. For those who don't know, in Persona 1 and 2, your party members could switch personas as well, but they needed to have an affinity with that type to be able to use them. So while you could get some utility from your party members, you couldn't exactly break the game unless you went crazy with it by grinding. So yes, do include the previous wildcard users. And if possible, have your romance options from Persona 3, 4, and 5 carry over for those characters, just to improve some of the interactions. But overall, having a party full of wildcards would make the game way too easy. Maybe only allow this in a New Game Plus mode, but including the previous protagonists would be a great way of celebrating the franchise. One thing that almost all Persona fans universally love is the Velvet Room attendants. They're usually the quirkiest and most interesting characters in their respective entries, so it'd be really cool to see previous attendants return in this game and interacting with each other, even if they don't all appear in the same Velvet Room. But it's something they could show in random events in the real world or during social link events, just for some extra flavor. It'd also be super cool to see attendants interacting with the wildcard user who isn't their own, since each Velvet Room is unique to the character using it. Just imagine Marie from Persona 4 interacting with Joker and the twins from Persona 5. That's a pretty fun idea. So those were just some of my thoughts on why Persona 6 needs to be a celebration of the franchise to date. How would you like to see Atlus celebrate Persona with the 6th entry? Thanks go out to my current channel members, R. Campbell and Danny Boy. If you'd like to help the channel further, consider hitting the join button or clicking the link in the description. Want more of my Persona content? Like this video and check out one of my videos popping up on screen now. Until next time, keep blazing that trail.